Paranoia, Kingdomino, and The Good Place. This is Staying In.
Oh my god. Listen.
You alright?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm sorry. I know that
I do love it when the first words come out of Pete's mouth are, "I'm sorry."
But it's always when we're recording through like whatever food he's eating for dinner that evening.
That's true. That's true.
I like your term there. Through. It's not eating with. It's just eating through it.
Yeah. Well, the reason that I'm sorry is I know that obviously we're doing our we're going to do our Secret Santa soon, and like I think everyone's chosen a relatively modest.
The word you're thinking of is normal.
Normal choice. Because you guys were all like, because obviously each year we do a Secret Santa and we all buy each other a gift. And last time I asked for something silly, which was a boxed retro game. And this year, I think you've all gone with books, and I've gone with games again. And but I think genuinely, a game based on a book or a game related to books, I think that's an okay. I think there's a lot there to work with.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
There's some really nice ones out there.
Well, is there?
Well, there's Heart of Darkness.
There's Sin and Punishment. No, Crime and Punishment, Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
You know, there's a Sherlock Holmes games. Witcher is based off of books. BioShock is technically based off a book. Like, how deep do you want to go with this? Because,
exactly.
Like, Bloodborne is technically like the Lovecraftian kind of inspired. Do you want inspired, or do you want a literal translation of a book? Because there was that game that both you and I really enjoyed. What was it called that was based upon religious texts? And it was almost
El Shaddai.
Pardon? El Shaddai, yeah. And it was based on religious texts, and it was almost like a one-to-one translation of following the same story. So do you want that, or do you want, like, inspired by...
That's the thing. I kind of wanted to keep it open, because I was like, that sort of gives you an opportunity to, like, be a bit creative and interesting with it, I guess, because I didn't want to be like last year, basically, where I was like, I want this, and I know that was really difficult for you guys.
No, it was difficult for me. I was the one who had to do it.
Sorry. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Okay.
well, to be honest, Dan, what did Dan's pick this year? He just put, I would like an interesting novel.
But that's him helping out, isn't it? That's him saying, I'm helping you guys out by saying, just make sure it's interesting. Oh no, that's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah, because yeah.
Oh no.
See, to me, I've just finished reading Leviathan Wakes, the first book in the Expanse trilogy.
I've just finished the first series.
Yeah, and to me, that was super interesting because, like, it has a lot to say about humans and societies and segregation and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't think Dan would enjoy a 500-page hard sci-fi novel about a virus that turns people into, like, gloops of flesh.
Yeah. And it is novel that he's specifically after, isn't it?
Yeah, that and a recipe book. An interesting... I think it was also an interesting recipe book. There was another adjective in there, but I can't remember what that was.
That'll be a difficult one. And of course you two want books as well.
Yeah. Yeah, but mine's... again, this year, and the reason I've asked for a book this year is I realised that there's another couple of genres of book that I've never read. Right. So I've asked for either /or, because the limit's £10, and really you can get 2 books for less than a tenner.
Yeah, okay. All right.
A self-help book.
Yeah.
Because I've never read one of those.
Right.
And /or an historical novel. Like, you know how, like...
The history of self-help.
No, I was thinking more like like the siege of, I don't know what famous sieges.
It's pretty clear you've never read a historical novel.
Stalingrad or the Churchill years, something like that.
The Berlin trilogy by whatever the hell her name is. Okay, that's good. And then Chris, what are you after?
I've asked for a classic novel written by a female author, because I realise I've got a lot of novels and not many of them are written by women. I haven't read a classic novel, like a classic novel, for a while. The last one I probably read was 100 Years of Solitude, which is just extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary novel.
Is there a reason that you think that you've not read much by women? Because I must admit, I've not read much by women, but that's mostly because I don't read.
I've read lots of in my job. I read a lot of academic books and articles written by female authors. But in terms of fictional work, mind you, I don't really get that much time to actually read fictional stuff for pleasure. I just noticed I haven't really read much, and I kind of want to rectify that fact somehow. It's not a conscious thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's an unconscious thing and probably indicative of the system. But I want to make more of an effort. And there's so many. When I say classic novels, it doesn't have to necessarily be things like Northanger Abbey or Pride and Prejudice. Classic in the sense that it's one of those novels for the ages, if you see what I mean.
So would you class something like Harry Potter as a classic novel?
Becoming a beloved classic, isn't it, really? But I think classic for me suggests something, I would argue, a little bit older.
A bit older than that.
But I think that will be that. So kind of Don Quixote's Count of Monte Cristo.
Don Quixote.
Yeah, I think Don Quixote is the knockoff that you've been reading. That's good.
Count of Monte
Don
Cristo.
Quixote and his servant Sanchez Panzans. It was only 2 weeks ago now, but you guys were over my place.
Yep.
Yeah, it was your birthday, and actually, we should really, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to Chris.
Yeah, it was my birthday yesterday. Time
great.
Recording.
Happy birthday to Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of, we've already talked about, what do you want to talk about your birthday? Because I want to kind of ask Chris about his. Should we just get yours out of the way?
I don't want to talk about my birthday. I wanted to talk about Paranoia, but we can talk about. We should totally talk about Chris's birthday and what the big K has been doing on the day of his birth.
Yeah, because, okay, I guess we should talk about you finally running an RPG.
Yeah. And I also want to talk about the gifts that you received, Pete, as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, shit. Yeah, okay.
You can't really escape that now.
No.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Well, I got some lovely gifts for my birthday. I received a wonderful food slicer.
It's called a mandolin.
Because a knife technically is a food slicer.
Right, yeah, of course.
Yeah. I mean, even a fork can do the job, depending on the food.
Or a spork.
A spoon if you're hungry enough.
Just your bare hands.
we could carry on.
Okay, so got a lovely mandolin because I'm going to make really nice thin root vegetable crisps because I am tired of big vegetable crisp corporations charging me out the arse for what I could make at home. So I'm going to do that. I got... What else do I get? Oh, gosh. It was so long ago.
Well, bloody hell, well, they suddenly stuck into the mind.
I think the main thing that we want to talk about is the
deep dish cake tin that I got you.
The Paul Hollywood one.
That's delightful. But the thing that I think that you're edging towards was the pinny,
the apron, not a penny.
Okay, the apron. Let's call it an apron. It is very good quality.
Yeah.
I will say this: a very fine kitchen apron with which to do culinary activities.
I think that's a testament to our friendship.
I think so. I think what's also a testament to our friendship is the number of photos of your faces that you've spattered all over it. I don't know where you would get a custom printed apron with photos of you on it. I mean, assuming it's the internet.
Yeah, it is. Great website. Yeah. Basically, we used images. So for all our kind of marketing, advertising stuff that we have for our site and on our Twitter page, where if you look at the top of our Twitter page at Staying in Pod, you can see our lovely shiny faces, beautifully photoshopped by your significant other and contributed to this podcast, Alex. Those are basically the B-roll, the pre-photoshopped images, the raw footage of our guys,
yes,
of us,
yes,
splayed across your torso.
Yes. I mean, there is a photo of Sam looking up, basically at my junk.
Yeah.
Which I think... I mean, that's certainly the image that I want when I'm cooking. I'm like, does it need pepper? Who knows?
Well, it's definitely salty enough.
Yes, so that was very nice. And on that day...
Yes.
On the day that everybody was over, I ran Paranoia, which is the first time I've ever run an RPG. And it's a proper full-on RPG, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, proper full pen-and-paper role-playing game. I picked it up because I thought... I always knew that I didn't want to do Dread, because I wanted to do something... I wanted to expose you guys to something a little bit more, like... old school, but then we talked about Dungeons and Dragons, maybe doing the starter thing for that, but that nice podcast that you guys listen to,
The Adventure Zone.
Yeah.
The Adventure Zone, apparently that they go through the starter for that, so I was like, well, that's kind of out. I looked at Pathfinder, looked at a couple of other things, and that kind of all felt a little bit like too much. And then I thought, you know what? I have heard of another game called Paranoia, and that world kind of appealed to me. It's a world where there's the computer, or friend computer, that runs this underground city called Alpha Complex, and it's this dystopian future whereby everything is clean and automated and looked after by the computer, but everybody has to obey the computer's every whims, and has to, otherwise they are deemed traitors by this computer that's kind of gone a little bit senile. I kind of, when people were asking me about what kind of a character the computer is, I always think of HAL from 2001. It's a computer that it isn't being evil, it isn't specifically trying to hurt the humans. It is just trying to complete a set of routines that it has, and it's trying to do it in the only way that it knows how to do it. It's not trying to be evil because it's not trying to be good. It just can't comprehend either of those things. It's just trying to work through the rules that it has. And this system, rather than Dread, which I really did like, which is a Jenga-based pen and paper role-playing game, this is a dice-based RPG where you roll the dice to perform actions, which any RPG player will know, but you also roll something called the computer dice, and if you get a computer on the computer dice, then something interesting happens. So it's classed as a success or a failure, but it's an interesting success or an interesting failure. So yeah, that was. I mean, how did you find it? Like, it's kind of like a comedy RPG, but with some proper RPG elements of actually fighting. How did you find it?
I enjoyed it. It smacked to me, for me, a bit of the Portal universe. This kind of where you had this, the computer took on this role of something. You talk about the computer going senile. Reminded me a bit of Wheatley, and in that regard, I think what kind of piqued my curiosity was how far we could push you. And in retrospect, I don't feel that I kind of pushed you enough. I think I was very. It was amazing how quickly I kind of just went along with what the computer said and was completely obedient. And I'm talking to you afterwards about the possibilities in which we could have deliberately kind of gone against your views, because a lot of the orders and objectives you gave us contradicted each other, which put us in difficult decisions in terms of how to rectify them so we can appease both parties. And that I found particularly interesting, actually.
Well, it was quite interesting because you, like, as a player, as a person, you know what Paranoia as a overall arc is going to be sort of heading towards, or you have the idea because throughout all of like literary culture and whatever, you know, we're brought into this idea of this utopian in sort of quote marks universe where there's this computer that rules over everything and all our lives are governed by this one thing. So we kind of, I think we know as players going in that this is something we'll eventually be fighting against or trying to subvert in some way. But what Paranoia does, which is quite interesting, is that we are kind of born into this world as clones with no idea of anything other than following the computer's rules. So as a player, you want to subvert those rules naturally, but because you're role-playing, you would never have that inclination because that part of the world is not fed into you yet. Yeah. So I feel like it'll be really interesting if we get to do like another arc of that to see how either that will be slowly introduced to us and we will start actually be exposed to trying to subvert some of this sort of totalitarian society that we're part of, or how we will increasingly become favourable towards the computer and fighting against things that we probably normally we'd be playing on the opposite side of, which is quite interesting how we're part of this one hive mind trying to play an RPG, where usually RPGs are always about trying to be as unique and as subversive as possible.
Yeah. There's so we played the first part of a 3-part story which comes with the actual box set, and in part 2 and part 3 that's definitely a theme that starts to come in. So part 2 and part 3 start introducing mechanics that we didn't have time for. So we played for about 2 or 3 hours, and that was just the first part, and it fit quite nicely into that time actually. But part 2, part 3, like we saw at the end of part 1, that whole new mechanic of how combat works and some of the intricacies of that. And that's definitely a theme that pervades throughout this beginner's story, basically. Yeah, I've got to say, like, I found the setup of Paranoia really... Like, it was a lot of work in advance, and then once you have the world in your head, which is a huge part of basically the core rulebook, it's mostly about here's the world, be free within it. Once I had that, when I started playing, the role of the computer and the fact and the way that Alpha Complex is built to be completely under the control and mastery of the computer just meant that I could get us out of any situation that I didn't want us to be in. Like, if you started to go down a route where it was like, I have no idea how I'm going to get us out of this, it was very simple for me to, role play the computer to actually bring it all back on path again, even though it's still just as free as, any other RPG or anything like that. Yeah, I'm really glad you guys liked it, because I would love to do part 2 and part 3 at some point. And in fact, like, it actually did give me the confidence and a bit of the bug, really, to actually think about, maybe once I get to the end of that, would that be something that I would be interested in continuing, either playing another story that I can find on the net or something like that, or making my own, which is something that I was a little bit worried about with Dread, because I was basically like, with Dread I was like, I don't want to write my own stuff because I just don't think I'm creative enough to do that. But I think Paranoia's rules and yet flexibility on behalf of the GM actually kind of gives me a little bit of confidence to go, do you know what, actually I might give that a shot.
I think what really interested me was the security clearance thing. Well, so we were infrared, which meant we were the kind of lowest of the low, and above that I think was red, I'm correct in saying, and our kind of supervisor in this kind of first part, Roz, was red. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to go with the computer's objectives was this idea in this kind of Machiavellian way that one day I would usurp her and get a higher clearance, and what doors that would open for me. It almost reminded me of that kind of ridiculous nature of the commedia dell'arte play, where everyone knows their place, and it's very clear to an audience outside who reports to who's above who, and the way they respond to each other. And that kind of bureaucratic nonsense that you see in like Douglas Adams' work, which he kind of satirises through science fiction and things. I quite like that.
Who do you think, Chris, to keep it highbrow, who do you think the Alakino was?
What's an Alakino?
So that's where we get the word Harlequin.
All right, I thought you meant jalapeno. Like, but we didn't have those now.
See. Sometimes I try and keep it as highbrow as I can.
I would say because we were joined by Alex's dad, who played the character of Lurch.
Yeah,
there was something quite Harlequin-esque about him.
Yeah, there was.
He was great fun to play with. Alex.
Oh, he was. Yeah, he was brilliant.
Do we not remember all the cracking jokes that I told?
You did some excellent. So rolling to see whether or not the joke was successful, I thought was pretty good. Like trying to liven the mood, but that is Paranoia. It's not. What I loved about it, and what I really, really appreciated you guys doing, was like really getting into it, not being like, well, this is just going to be D&D and I'm just going to fight stuff. It was like going, right, I want to use this skill to try and get through this test, and in this situation I'm going to try and be as forward thinking, like out there thinking as I can to resolve this situation in an interesting way. And yeah, I thought that was absolutely amazing. And then and I think Tony, which is Alex's father, he actually played one of the original editions of Paranoia, because this thing's been around for like 20 years or something like that, and he just got it. It was just like,
he took
it was so obvious.
Yeah. I think one of my highlights was the image of his character jumping, grabbing like an electrical cable dangling above and pulling it down onto this enemy that we were facing, and just literally giving himself 3rd and 4th degree burns, and having to spend the rest of the game like with his hands in like oven gloves.
But here's the other final thing I want to talk about, because I really did have thought about Paranoia a lot. The other thing I really love about it is that it basically has a lives system, and it means that you're not. I don't think any of you ever felt precious about taking a risk.
No.
Because it's like the antithesis of Dread. Like, Dread is like, oh crap, we cannot do this because that tower is going over. Whereas Paranoia is basically, I've got 5 more clones left. I don't care. Yeah, sure. Like, yank on that electric cable.
Yeah.
I was killed, wasn't I? One of my cat clones was killed because he got kind of poked in the eye. But I can't remember who was that. You, Sam, who poked me in the eye.
That was me who poked you, because we were coming up again, and this is what I love about RPGs. This paragraph this scene I'm about to describe. We were being faced by a team of makeshift pirates who were using a table as a raft, and they weren't convinced that we were pirates because we were like trying to sneak past them without sort of getting into a fight. So to convince them that we were pirates, I shoved Chris's character off the boat and forced him to. No, that's right.
No,
Chris was
I
trying
consciously
to...
chose to get off the boat because I thought we were going to be attacked. So I thought I'd hide.
So you were going to try and stealthily sort of sneak around their ship in anticipation of an attack. So instead of you being stealthy, we took advantage of you being at the back of the boat and kind of said, look, we're punishing this guy. And then I was holding a mop, and I was basically trying to go, look, oh, and I was just like trying to like gently tickle your fingers with the mop. To like as a sort of sense of torture, and going to these pirates like, look what we're doing to him, isn't he a naughty boy? But I rolled so badly that basically I just stabbed you in the eye and you lost an eye.
And because we weren't in water and I was a clone, we were in. What were we in? What was the? We weren't on water.
Jam, basically.
Yeah, it was red.
Yeah,
it was dessert
red
sauce.
dessert topping.
And I couldn't swim, so I drowned with one eye in dessert topping because we didn't know that Alex spoke pirate. And immediately that placated them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the whole thing was very successful. And I must admit, I was very, very nervous going into that, thinking, oh, God, have I bitten off more than I can chew? Because I jumped in 2 feet first. But I think it worked out really well.
And I've sorted out, because now we've all done an RPG now.
Yeah, whose turn is it next?
Dan, isn't it?
I'm going to throw my hat into the ring, and well, I guess it is an RPG, but the next time we all meet, we're playing Twilight Imperium.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes!
4th edition. Now, Sam, for listeners...
No, Chris, we're not playing 4th edition, we're going to play 3rd.
Sam, for listeners who don't know what Twilight Imperium is, do you want to talk about what this light and fluffy micro game is about?
I'm sorry, Sam. I am so happy.
Well, this game to basically it's a game of space diplomacy. You each play a race of aliens, and you have a modular board, and basically you each round you move your ships to claim different spaces on the board, to claim different planets, and you can fight between players, and you can sort of go for supremacy. But the main crux of the game is at the end of each round. This is as far as I understand it. At the end of each round, there's a meeting of the Galactic Council where between you and the other players you decide rules that apply to the universe that you're playing in, you decide laws that need to be brought in, you sort of sign peace agreements with other players on the team. So at its sort of basis, you have this kind of modular sort of space like domination game, but really what it's the heart of is this really sort of well-structured and defined RPG where you're each, as a race, trying to build this universe and create this thing inside this box. So games are said to last about, depending on the number of players, really about sort of 5 to 8 hours. But yeah, because the 4th edition's just come out, the price of the 3rd edition has literally just has halved.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be the time where I jump on board, and I've read a lot about it, and basically they've said from reviews of the 4th edition have just basically said that if you know you're only going to play this even once a year, or it's just going to be a thing that you get out once in a while, like the 3rd edition's all you need. like the 4th edition is like 120 quid. I've seen it in some places.
Oh my gosh. So you've got that.
So
Pete's got Space Hulk as well, which is that.
Well, I haven't got it yet.
No,
I haven't got it yet.
it's in transit.
No, it's not even in transit. I haven't even ordered it.
It's just an idea.
But I'm pretty much after Christmas, and I've kind of got everything in order. Like I haven't bought a new board game in ages. Just like nothing out there has really sort of tickled my fancy. Even though there's a new Betrayal Legacy game coming out soon, which might be quite interesting. But yeah, this is the kind of thing that I think like the one thing in my collection that's really missing. And I think that we get together like twice a year, maybe 3 times if we're lucky, and I just think that it could, like Twilight Imperium could form a massive part of those get-togethers that we have, where we value the time that we're playing, and like being able to focus on one thing for like 4 or 5 hours is a really interesting idea, and there's no pressure on anyone to like create an RPG or create rules and like stuff like that. And from what I've read and seen about Twilight Imperium, I just think it's right up our street, and I even think Dan would really enjoy it as well, because like a lot of the creation of like the characters is all there on the sheets for you, so you don't have to worry about it, and there's a lot of recognisable board game mechanics, and then it's just what we bring to it makes the game. So I think that like he would really enjoy that as well. So that's the main reason why I'm kind of jumping on board, because I think that like we more and more we value the time that we're spending together, so I just think it would be nice to have something really meaty and weighty and just look like once a year we all get together and we all play it, and that's like our thing, and I'm kind of in love with that, like the romanticisation
I'm with you on that.
of that idea.
Completely.
Love it.
Totally. And do you know what's equal to that, Sam?
What?
Rhino Hero Super Battle.
Oh, yes.
Which is the gift I got from my birthday.
Chris, straight up, like, when I bought it for you, and with Sam's suggestion that I buy it, I looked at when I got it delivered, I looked at it and I thought, I've bought the wrong game, because it looked like a child's game, right? Looks like a game for babies. And then
it is a child's game.
Well, yeah. So, and then we got it out the thing, and you started reading the rules, and you were like, "Oh yeah, it's a dexterity game," and I was like, because I've just something about me just immediately sees dexterity game and just thinks, nah. And then we started playing.
Oh my god, we started playing. Sam, what did we do?
So, Rhino Hero Super Battle, I think that's the full title.
It is indeed, by Harbour Games.
Is basically an extension, the Super Battle version, if you will, of Rhino Hero. And I'm going to get the original Rhino Hero, which is a small box game for when we all go away in over Easter.
Nice.
Because it's basically a tinier version of Super Battle. So the original game is a very simple sort of card stacking game. You have cards in your hand that tell you how you're going to be positioning these sort of bendy pieces of card that fold in on themselves. And basically you put the roof on top of the card, and then the next player puts their card on top, and slowly this tower starts forming. So Super Battle is just a massive extension of that premise. So whereas in Rhino Hero, the original, you're just building one singular tower like a skyscraper, here you're building 2 to 3 buildings that are connected to each other. And so on you go, you have like almost a hand of cards, a hand of roof tiles that tell you if you're either going to build like just put down one small wall, or 2 big walls, or 1 big wall and 1 small wall. And then you've got to place those walls, and then you've got to put your roof flat, completely horizontal on top of those walls that not necessarily the walls that you've just built, but somewhere on this building. And then slowly, as more and more people are playing and taking their moves, slowly the tower gets bigger, the tower gets taller, and naturally it gets more wobbly and precarious, and you've got little models of like each player has got their own little superhero that they can move at the building, because the idea is that if the tower falls and you're at the top, then you win, basically. And so it's just a wonderful dexterity game, but also quite a good puzzle game as well.
Yeah, it's a great centerpiece on the table. I mean, it looked.
Yes.
We were all taking pictures of it constantly
So
throughout
cool.
the process. You build essentially like an apartment block, and it's those lovely little details. So on the outside of the folded cards, you've got the windows with these various different animals looking out through it. I mean, if you turn it on the inside, you can see the inside of their living room, and equally, as you're saying, the roof tiles on the top. Looking down, it's the roof, but underneath you've got the lights of a corridor in somebody's flat and things, and it's just great. This kind of polymorphous space, and it's quick, it's light, it's breezy, and it's just adorable. Great game, absolutely brilliant game.
I really recommend it for if anyone's played. It's made by the same, it's published anyway, by the same company who did Go Cuckoo, which is kind of like if Staying In was to have like a recommended portion of the show, like Go Cuckoo is like massively one thing that I would recommend. I think we've all fallen in love with it. Very difficult to get hold of though. But Rhino Hero Super Battle, I've seen it in a lot of places. It seems to be really readily available, and like if you get friends together and you're looking for the perfect sort of like nachos and dip, and I know it's a bit of a weird statement to say, but like buddies and beers game, just something to kick off the evening, then there's really like no better game out there at the moment, I think, and just really light, really fluffy. Like I really want to get hold of the original or even this edition to take away with me and my family when we're going away at Christmas. It's just going to be right up their street, like introducing like a child. Like on the box it says ages 9 to 99, and it's just like that just describes the game in a nutshell, really.
Rhino Hero is fantastic. Thank you for that, Pete, and thank you, Sam, for your recommendation. I also got another adorable board game. This one's Kingdomino, designed by Bruno Catala and published by Blue Orange Games, where essentially it's a tile-laying game in a similar vein to the kind of Tetris-like quality of Baron Park, which we played before with Sam.
Oh, Chris.
What?
Have you seen the new expansion that's coming to Baron Park?
No, how do you expand on a bear park, Sam? What do you do?
Monorails.
Oh, do you know what? Perfect.
Just take a quick sidebar. So, the expansion that they're currently playtesting basically gives you stilts to put in your park, and then you can create a little monorail that sits above the actual park that you're making.
That's amazing. It's like Rhino Hero.
Anyway.
That sounds amazing. That reminds me of a game that is a roller coaster designing game where you actually have it ends with you actually putting a marble down it, actually just seeing how the roller coaster works, and there's a loop-the-loop as well and things. Pretty cool.
That sounds great.
Kingdomino. It's basically a game in which everyone has their own little castle and a little central tile, and you nominate from a selection of particular tiles of different terrains, and you eventually create a 5x5 grid with your castle either in the centre of it, but it has to be within this 5x5 grid, and you basically score. You get points depending on how many of the same terrain interconnect, and there are crowns on them, and you multiply the number of crowns on your tile by the number of pieces. So very easy scoring mechanic, very light and breezy. I think it's part of what we like to call our breakfast game, Oeuvre. I think it is a perfect breakfast game. It's very light.
It could be.
You can converse freely when you're playing it. It doesn't take much kind of mental thinking. Me and my partner, we've been playing it kind of often quite late at night when we've got from work quite late, say, for example. It's a perfect game to kind of take off your shelves if you're not in the mood for something dexterous like Rhino Hero.
Take off your shelves.
Yeah. Literally, we literally rip the shelves off the wall.
I think what there's the interesting thing about Kingdomino is kind of you've got this. I missed this phrase earlier when I was talking about Twilight Imperium. What's it called where you dominate space and whoever has the most space gets the most points?
Area control.
Area control. Bloody hell! Essentially, is an area control game, but it's done through drafting. So the main sort of appeal when we play, because we played Kingdomino first in Chance Encounters in Bristol, didn't we, Pete? And
yes, we did.
Both Lisa and I, pretty much everyone around the table went, this is right up Chris's alley. Like the artwork, the very simple idea that all you're doing is joining together different regions of tiles.
That's immensely satisfying, that feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. But also there's a depth behind it, which is created by this drafting mechanic that if you're the first person to pick up a tile, then you become the last person to pick up a tile on the next round. So it means that you can't always it means that you have to play a game of thinking down the line of, right, I want that tile next time, so I've got to make sure that I go what position this time in the order to make sure you get the tile you want further down the line. So this constant battle between you and the players really brings the game up, because it could be a very sort of solitary, everyone's got their heads down, everyone's kind of focusing in on what they're doing kind of game, but because of this drafting mechanic where you're always competing against the other players around the table to get the tiles that you want to complete your board, means that you're always kind of like, I love that action of like perching and looking over at your the other players' boards and go, right, they're going to want more river tiles next turn, so I can either be really mean and take that really tasty river tile, or, you know, try and block them by going in another direction. I think that's what really lifted it for me, and what I really enjoyed, that and the fact you get to create your own little 3D castle at the start. That was cool.
It reminded me a bit of Sushi Go, when you can kind of, you look over and see what the strategy of the other person around the corner is thinking.
Oh, yeah.
And you go, actually, shall I let them carry on and finish that collection, or do I dick them over, even though I don't need that piece? I stop them from taking it.
But do you take the tempura prawns, just even though you don't need them, to stop them getting the points that they need? Yeah.
But it's one of those great games where you could just play it by chance and just go, I'll just pick anything and just see what I get at the end, and just get that satisfaction of completing your puzzle of 5x5, and it tessellates very neatly and stuff. Or you could literally, as you say, Sam, just think more deeply about it and strategise. That was great.
And the setup's so wonderful as well. Like, everything is in the box that it comes in.
Yeah.
And basically the whole game is emptying the box. And once the box is empty, the game is finished. And then you just put everything back in the box again. Yeah. And then it's ready to start. And I think there's literally no setup time. The only setup time is just building your castle.
It's such a clean, efficient game.
It did win the Spiel des Jahres, didn't it?
Well done, Kingdomino.
Yeah, you're right.
I know.
Well done, everyone.
Well done, everyone. As if they need us to tell them well done. You know?
Yeah.
They're waiting for that pat on the back from us. No, great fun. I know there's a sequel that's come out, Queendomino, which is a little bit more thinky, apparently.
I think it adds in a few other... I think there's some dice involved with it. But I think we do really love simplicity. And, like, again, if I was with my family over Christmas, if I was taking this away, then, you know, it's just another game that I really think they would all enjoy.
You were sort of saying, The Good Place. What?
The Good Place.
Is that like a mental place? Is it like a philosophical place?
This will be very quick, because the more I talk about The Good Place, the more I risk kind of ruining what it is.
Okay.
Right.
But The Good Place is a new comedy from Michael Schur, the guy who brought us Parks and Rec and Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh, that sounds already like it is a thing I would enjoy.
You would absolutely love it. The premise of the show is that The Good Place is a colloquialism for heaven, essentially.
Okay.
And the show starts with the main character, played by Kristen Bell, waking up in the good place, and she's died, and now she is in the good place. And Ted Danson is on absolutely phenomenal form as the guy who's like designed this neighborhood that she lives in, and like shows her around. And the twist of the first episode is that Kristen Bell's character is the wrong person. They've got the wrong person, and she realises that she does not belong in the good place.
Oh.
And then the series goes from there. So from that sort of example, it like sounds like your very sort of typical person in the wrong situation sitcom, you know. Yeah, fish out of water sitcom. But really, The Good Place goes in directions you will not believe. Like, it is really worth just, like, not only is it funny, but from about episode 4-5 onwards, like, it really starts to take, like, really exceedingly good tangents and goes in directions and, like, thought experiments on ethics and philosophy and sort of even the meaning of life. And like, that's the thing. Like, I can't talk about it because the more I'm at liberty to ruin actually what happens in the show, and that reveal and that sense of, my God, they're actually they're actually doing this. It's just so enjoyable that you really just have to experience it. And each episode is like 25 minutes, so you really get that.
It's on Netflix,
quick.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
and it's just been commissioned for a third season, hasn't it?
I'm not surprised, and it's got Michael Schur's great writing. Like he's just got a really good ear, which is kind of a strange turn of phrase, but he's kind of got a good ear for like funny turns of phrase and things like that. Like one of the most enjoyable things about Brooklyn Nine-Nine is like how the characters talk to each other and the patter that they have and their own sort of sense of colloquialisms. Yeah. And he just does great stuff in the Good Place, like swearing's outlawed. Every time that Kristen Bell character tries to like swear, she says shirt instead of shit and fork instead of fuck.
Right.
So like as she's getting more exasperated with her situation, like just that simple mechanic of she can't express herself how she wants to, it's just really, really funny. And I can't carry on enthusing about it because you've really just got to watch it. And
have to carry on. I think one of my favourite sequences is very early on. I think it's in the first season where Kristen Bell's character, she asks Ted Danson, who's this, as Sam says, the architect of this version of this place in the Good Place. He says, well, which of the religions got it right? And he said, well, they were kind of all a bit. Some of them got bits of it right. The closest guy was this bloke here, and they've got like an oil painting of him on the wall. And basically, he was a bloke, he got himself absolutely baked, completely stoned. And he got 92-point-something% exact match based on what he saw while he was stoned. And they have like a picture of him on the wall. He's like, he's kind of like memorialised for that.
Yeah, and Ted's like, I'm really lucky to have that.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I think you and Alex would really, really enjoy it actually, because it's
cool.
Really uplifting as well as like just it's a really nice watch.
Right.
Which is kind of what I'm into at the moment. It's one of the reasons why I bought Watch Dogs 2, because I was wanting a game that has lots of colour and is really vibrant. And The Good Place does that really well. Like, it's a really vibrant show. It's like really colourful. It pops off the screen, and the comedies matches that.
That's
so
cool.
I recommend that.
It reminded me actually, The Good Place, of those few early seasons of Community, where it would always have a kind of uplifting ending where they'd learn a bit more about each other, and
right.
It's kind of. But this one this has got like this is like Western philosophy kind of distilled into it, and you've got literally a character trying to teach, who was like a professor of ethics when he was alive, teaching Kristen Bell how to be good through ethics, and philosophy.
So you'll love it, Pete, because they talk about Aristotle and Kant and all that kind
of
stuff.
Oh yeah,
like what is it to be good, and
that's my jam. Yeah, I actually would quite like to know why you aren't really. You sound like you're not really enjoying Watch Dogs at all.
Yeah, so I had a big clear out, and I had some credit at the good old sex shop, and
took me a second there.
CEX.
Yes.
So I wanted something colourful in my life, and I wanted to get The Last of Us remastered because I've had a hankering to play that game for ages. So I picked that up. I thought I'd pick up a couple of other things. I picked Deus Ex, the most recent one, Mankind Divided, and Watch Dogs 2, because I'd heard loads of good things, and it was really colourful, and it's a really bright neon game, and that kind of suits my palette at the moment of things that I'm enjoying. But it's such a weird game. Like, I think it's a sign of my age that my biggest problem with it is its approach to its own ethics and morals.
Right. Okay. Let's explore that.
What was it? I said. What? Hang on. We were talking about this the other day on WhatsApp, Pete.
All right.
And I put it more succinctly in a sentence that I'm struggling with its moral ambiguity.
Yeah, I read that and I was like, I think Sam's having a day. What I'm because we talked very briefly before about how, like, I personally find it very difficult to get excited about historical war. I find that morally a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
So is it along those lines, or?
Kind of. Like, if we take it back to, like, Memoir 44, even though that's advertised as the game of the D-Day landings, like, it gets over that by actually really, with every single scenario that you play, giving you quite a really deep understanding of what happened on those days and what both sides of the war went through to achieve what they did. So it kind of earns. I think there's a bit of a moral hurdle to get over, but it earns it essentially. However, with Watch Dogs 2, it has all the symptoms of a game that is trying to achieve something with its moral objectives, but it ultimately suffers from being a Ubisoft open world game. Basically, what I mean by that is there are guns and you can kill people. Like,
right.
So, and this is my big problem with it, is the fact that you play Marcus and you are... The first thing you do in the game is wipe yourself from the servers of this big national corporation which controls everything in San Francisco. Everything is connected by computers. Your whole life is tracked. And you wipe yourself from the servers, and that is your initiation into DedSec, which is this very high ethical hacker organisation, a bit like Anonymous is the closest representation that we have to it in our life, I guess. And they're on this crusade to free the people of San Francisco from the trappings of this organisation, which are basically running all the parts of their lives and controlling everything and doing really, really shady stuff. So that's the main conceit. However, there's this part of it where you're also encouraged... Well, not encouraged is the right term, but you can build guns and you can run people over and there's no consequence, really, or reference to you doing that from any of the characters or any of the narrative. And that... The more I've played it, the more that's played on my mind, that I'm meant to be playing this really ethical person, this person that's got this moral standing that wants to fight against this injustice and do it using the tools, using almost non-lethal tools, like you hack your way around the city and you give people, like, the first gun you have is a stun gun, but then you always end up going around these stealthy areas just being shot at, and the game's kind of like, well, if you want to fight back, then you shoot at them too. And like, just when everything descends into a gunfight and people are just, it just feels like every other game. And
do you need your own chiddy?
Chiddy, yeah, I do. It's just like the game does loads of things right. And it does loads of... The approach of its gameplay is really, really interesting. Like, it's Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, but you can hack everything in your build. And there's loads of, like, really nice moments. Like, you can send cars zooming... Like, you're driving down the highway, for example, and you come to, like, there's two cars in front of you. You can control both cars, so one turns left and one turns right, creating a path for you in the middle. But both those cars crash. One of them falls off a cliff into the water, and there's no ethical repercussions for, like, having that action. And it feels to me that you become no better than the corporation that you're trying to stop having such control over people's lives. No. And I get the feeling that the people who've designed it put that in to be like, ha ha ha, isn't that funny? Like, you controlled that car and crashed, but there's no thought for the person who's actually in that car. And I don't know if that's me being hypersensitive to it, or there's a bit of ludonarrative dissonance between the character that you actually are and what you're actually trying to achieve and the way that you're trying to do it.
I was going to say, like, that feels exactly like what you're running up against, because whenever a video game tries to tell a story that has some sort of moral or social implication, as soon as its video gameness comes in, all of that ethical questioning goes out the window. Do you like? So this is why we saw this with, I mean, both of the recent Grand Theft Autos, right? Like GTA 4, you're constantly being told that your character is like, I just want to get away from this, like, this run of life. Oh, but actually, let me go and mow down another 40 people. And GTA 5 is exactly the same kind of, oh, I'm a retired gangster and I don't want to do this. Oh, but actually, I'll go ahead and do this. And oh, my children are absolutely terrible, but look at me murder a bunch of people. There's kind of, I think video games that want to dabble in any sort of critique of society run that risk. I actually ran up against this myself recently. I was playing Mirror's Edge Catalyst.
Oh, right.
Now I love Mirror's Edge, and the actual gameplay of Mirror's Edge Catalyst was excellent, much better than the original. But the original is more subtle in how it is talking about the society that Faith is a part of. Like, it doesn't ever actively come out and say, isn't this stuff awful? It just lets you look at this very empty, clean world and say, oh, this is a strange universe to be a part of. Whereas Mirror's Edge Catalyst, I mean, it's so in your face with the fact that you are this anarchist group that it just hammers it home all of the time. Look at this terrible corporation. Look at what they are doing. Look at capitalism running wild. Brought to you by Electronic Arts. Like, it's bananas. Like, again, it's that thing of, it's all very well to make a statement on what on the society around you, but you also kind of have to take into account things like, you know, in Mirror's Edge, it's all about, like, the end game is basically go and collect a load of clothes. Like what?
Watch Dogs 2's approach is so radical in terms of a video game, like its approach to gender and gender identity and sort of sexuality and sort of celebrity lifestyle is so, like, you know, on point, and it deals with all these things really well, and then you're kind of expected just to go into a compound and mow down people and it's just, I was driving on the street and, like, I accidentally just lost control of the car and killed someone, and it was just like, I felt really bad for it. I was just like, what am I doing? I'm meant to be this character who is trying to stand up for doing something good in the world, and I can't. And it feels like the tools just aren't there in the moments, because basically how sort of Watch Dogs 2 is kind of structured, and this is the other reason why I'm not really getting along with it, it's essentially that you have the tools in your hands to hack things and take control of items, to basically get into these little segregated areas, puzzle areas, and you kind of, a bit like what they called in Far Cry, like the outposts.
Yeah.
Like, and essentially you spend your time circling the outposts thinking, right, what's my approach here? And I always think of, right, I want to take a non-lethal, stealthy approach. And it's so difficult. Like, there is no... The guards don't really have a clear cone of sight. You don't know when they're, like, looking at you. They're so quick to just get their guns out and just leap on you.
Yeah.
So you either take my approach, which is just run away, wait for it all to die down, and then come back again, which makes me feel like I'm cheating the game somewhat. I'm not the highfalutin, really stealthy, cool-ass hacker that I'm meant to be. Or I grab a minigun and a sniper rifle and pick everyone off and just clear out the area, and then I'm no good than everyone else. And even and it just this game, it's just really, like, it's gotten to me, because I'm still playing it, because the writing and its sense of identity and its sense of place within the world that we're living today and what it's trying to say is so interesting. But I don't know whether I'm just going to have... I don't know whether I'm just better off watching a Let's Play than I am actually trying to engage with something. And, like, I feel like Deus Ex is probably more the game that I want, where you're actually it's trying to say the same things about society in a different way, but through different gameplay mechanics.
I'd be really interested to see how you get on with Deus Ex, because I think I ran into some of those similar issues with that game, but I'll be really interested to see how you get on with that. But I mean, just on that, and I know I'm a massive Assassin's Creed apologist, but one of the things about that I think Creed has always got right is that when you do things that are not heroic, when you do things that are not in keeping with the Brotherhood, mm-hmm. the game desynchronizes and just says, no, that can't be how it happened, because Altair wouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
and I think that it's that universe is often laughed at a little bit, because, I mean, for good reason, but also because I think it has all of this sort of phony baloney technology stuff. But I think that does at least keep the player in check a little bit, which I think is really good.
As you guys all know, wedding planning is going forwards. It's onwards. We're marching towards. We've paid our first. The registrar is booked. Well, mm-hmm. yeah. As in, we paid like the first deposit for someone to come and like marry us. And
does it feel weird to say that?
It's so weird, like to have to almost pay someone to come and just sign a.
Mm. Did you ever contemplate asking one of us to, become officiated, and then we could?
Yeah, but
that would be incredible.
We'd still have to pay to actually make it official. Yeah, we'd still have to go to a little council office somewhere and sign a piece of paper.
Okay.
Even if one of you guys do it. As far as I understand the procedure goes, I don't know, I've not done it before.
Okay.
And the venue's all sorted, which is all very exciting. But now we are on to the food. We are making decisions about what food that we would like you all to eat.
Beautiful.
The very, very important bit.
Yeah.
So we had a catering meeting yesterday.
A catering meeting? Wow. Okay. On the agenda.
So when are we getting a copy of the minutes?
Well, it's a massive thing, because, like, in terms of our wedding budget, it's probably going to be over half of the money that we spend on everything.
Just for me.
Yeah, hell, Chris,
yeah, that's the problem.
They were like, does anyone have any dietary requirements? And we're like, no, actually we're all pretty flexible, except for Chris. He just needs like more than everyone else.
Round the clock.
Yeah. Chris, is that what you put whenever you're like getting on booking a flight and stuff, like dietary requirements, just in quotes, a lot?
Well, my partner and I, when we eat, we actually, our recipes, we always cook. When my partner and I, we cook, we always cook for 4 people. We do servings for 4. That's standard, really. 4 people for the 2 of us.
Your food bill and budget is like
I'm assuming, Chris, it's 3 for you.
Yeah. Lisa's making bolognese tonight, and I know that's going to be like a couple of dinners for the next couple of nights, because we eat like normal people.
Yeah.
So one of the exciting things and one of the great things about like meeting with caterers is we get to go to tasting days.
Nice.
So in a couple of weeks' time, I think next week maybe, we've got our first tasting evening where we've picked a few things, like a few starters. I think we'll try some canapes as well, a few mains, and a few desserts. And as far as I understand it, from the meeting that we had yesterday, they make full portions of each thing that we've chosen. So we see what it actually looks like when it gets on the plate, rather than little actually tasters. So Lisa and I will be expected to... Well, we won't be expected to, but we will be presented with 3 whole starters between the 2 of us, 3 main dishes between the 2 of us, and then 3 desserts to eat, as well as canapes.
That sounds amazing.
I know. I think you should just get married, Chris, just for the... Yeah, we're getting married. Yeah.
That sounds like wedding tapas. So what's on the menu? What's
This is going to feel strange to say, because it's still going to happen, but we don't want a traditional like sit down 3-course meal.
Okay.
Like, we want as much as possible for the food that we have to encourage as much sort of social activity between the people on the table that are sitting there.
Right.
So just one set of cutlery per table. That'd do it.
Can I have the fork, please?
Yeah.
Pete's there with his mandolin, just like slicing up the potatoes for everyone. But it's like we went to one wedding where the main meal was each table had a tagine, so it wasn't like everyone just sits down and then someone puts a plate of food in front of them and then people eat it and then someone takes that plate of food away. We like this idea of there being something in the middle of the table and people are just like sharing and
that's
like,
really
doling
nice.
it out. And,
Yeah.
something to encourage conversation. We went to another wedding where the dessert was each table just got a pavlova.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, that sounds. I mean, can I butt in again? Just it's important I tell you this now, but it was my birthday yesterday. My lovely partner made me a tagine for just the two of us, and a whole banoffee
I mean, that's
pie.
the best. I mean, she knows you so well that the best birthday present you can get, Chris, is a 4-course meal just for him.
I mean,
or a meal for 4
it was a whole
people.
packet of chicken thighs in there.
Chris.
I mean, when you say a packet of chicken thighs, the chicken's only got 2. So do you mean like...
It was like 6.
Jesus, Chris! That is so much food! You're like a star! You just burn energy. You just like... emanates off of you. Oh, God.
So the menu's not finalised yet, but the idea is that obviously we want it to reflect us and the food we like as well.
Yeah.
So... which is one of the things that you talk about with the catering meeting, where it's kind of like it's our day, so it's not just like the decoration and the music will be, and our friends and family will be a reflection of us, but also the food's quite an important part of that.
Yeah.
So we don't just want like a chicken and a fish dish or whatever. So like we think that the main will be something Thai orientated or
lovely.
sort of Middle Eastern, because that's the kind of food that we eat all the time.
That's really nice.
So, and the place that we're going to next week offers like a make your own sundae as the dessert option.
Oh.
So the idea is that everyone gets ice cream, and then in the middle of the table is just like a mixture of loads and loads of different toppings. So we're gonna like choose what toppings that you want. So we're literally getting loads and loads of toppings.
Sam, did you notice Chris's eyes just then? They did, like you could see that like conscious level Chris went away, and then in his mind he was like, it was like Scrooge McDuck, Pete, but jumping into a big vault of ice cream.
I can make it even better. Another option that we might try out from one of the caterers is the idea that we have 3 stalls dotted around the room, and each of them offers a different cuisine of food. So there's like a Thai stall, a Middle Eastern one, and like an Italian one.
That's awesome.
And so basically you can go up and visit these stalls at any part during the main part of the evening.
That'd be so good.
That's amazing.
So Chris is just there, just like, just camped, just moves, just like shuffles his table next to a stall and just like sits there.
Just like, I am going to bankrupt this company.
That sounds amazing. I really love that, Sam, as an idea. I think that's really
it's
lovely.
great.
And then we've got evening food as well, which I think is pretty much going to be fish finger sandwiches.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Just give me a baguette.
And some sea bass.
Yeah.
Battered sea bass whole. Nice. Just a whole bottle of tartar sauce. That was Staying In with Sam Turner, Peter Willington and myself, Chris Darby. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Visit stayingin.podbean.com for more information and links to the various things we've covered in this episode. And also, come find us on Twitter at StayingInPod. Also, really excitingly, we're now on Spotify. So if you yourself are a Spotifyer, please do care to follow us. Well, it's been over an hour and I haven't eaten, so I better go and sort that. Bye.